You may have seen my last three walkthroughs of the Porsche 996, 997 and 991 ranges. I'll put a link to them in the description, and there's a pop-out at the top of the screen too. This time though, we go back in time and take a look at the Porsche 993 range of the 911. Like the last times, I've built a guide which shows you all the different models in the range, and whilst the 993 isn't as nuanced or confusing as later ranges, I will guide you through it, and I've even shown in the guide this time the production numbers of each variant of 993. I hope that by the end of this, if you are looking for a 993, then you'll be better educated for your search and know which are the genuinely rare cars. The 993 range is notable for being the last of the air-cooled 911s. As a 996 owner and overall 911 fan, I must concede that I've never truly understood why this is important, but here we are. This contributes to the values of 993s, which are now quite significant. The days of cheap 993s are well and truly behind us. In fact, you'll be lucky to find one anywhere of any variant for much less than $40,000, and even then with a higher mileage. As we will discover, some models go for multiples of that. So, firstly to the basics, the Porsche 993 is the fourth generation of 911. It superseded the 964 and was launched in 1994 for the 1995 US model year. It had a relatively short life cycle, and production was handed over to the 996 model in 1998. So combine the concept of it being the last air-cooled car and the low production numbers, and you get strong demand for what is a well-designed, pretty car, even today. It was deemed to be a step change in the engineering of the 911 range compared to its predecessor. The M64 engine was carried over from the 964, but was significantly refined and coupled with a new 6-speed manual gearbox or 4-speed tiptronic. The end result was a car that actually only shared just 20% of its parts with its predecessor. Porsche's engineers also took a look at the car's handling, and by using an entirely new design of suspension managed to reduce the 964's lift-off oversteer, and by adding bigger brakes and revised power steering made it a nicer car to drive. As ever, the range began with the Carrera models, with their naturally aspirated 3.6-litre flat-six engines. Early models with the M64-05 engines put out 268 brake horsepower, rising to 281 bhp from 1996 and the advent of the further revised M64-21 engine. IMS issues are not a concern with the 993, in case you were wondering. Both coupe and cabriolet models were offered in Carrera form from launch, and they were joined by the new glass-roofed Targa in 1996. The Targa broke the mold of Targa styling that people have become used to since the model's launch in 1966. Instead of the usual removable panel above the seats, the 993 had a large glass sunroof sweeping from the top of the windscreen to the back of the car. It allowed a lot of light in, but it has a bit of a reputation for noise and unreliability. I'll leave you to decide if the styling was an improvement over the classic Targa design. In 1996, as part of the midline upgrade that heralded the more powerful engine, Porsche launched the S and 4S models. These are often touted as the pick of the range and command much higher prices than the Carrera. They made much fewer of them, too, contributing to low supply and high demand. These models used the turbo model's wider body and the beefier looks, whilst contributing to weight, also allowed wider wheels and tyres, affording better handling. In today's market, these go for between $60,000 and $120,000, compared with the standard Carreras, which go between $40,000 and $80,000. Talking of the turbo, Porsche launched these from the beginning of the 993. It came with a new twin-turbo flat-six 3.6-litre engine, pushing out 402 bhp in standard form. Quite some hike from the 355 bhp of the 964 turbo. As mentioned before, the turbo also had a body that was just over 2 inches wider than the standard Carrera, and also for the first time ever was given all-wheel drive to maximise traction. It made a compelling car in 1995 and was one of the fastest cars on the road. The power race was on, and the manufacturers seemed to compete with each other from here to see who could squeeze the most amount of power in their cars. For example, it wasn't long before Mercedes pushed 500 bhp into their SL55 competitor, but that's another story. This car weighed just 3,307 pounds, which keeps it competitive on performance even today. By the way, that's almost 1,000 pounds lighter than the SL55. This is the beauty of Porsche 911s, folks. The 1996 and later cars are generally recognised as being the turbos to have, with a stronger transmission and other minor luxuries added. You'll be hard pushed to find a 993 turbo for less than $125,000 these days, going all the way up to $200,000 for lower mileage cars. We are not quite done with the turbo models yet though. All turbo models were coupes, except for 14 cars that were produced before the 993 turbo model came out, and using a 964 single turbo engine, 5-speed gearbox and its rear wing. So, good luck finding one of those, and also being able to afford it too. One sold in 2017 for $1.4 million. To complete the walkthrough of the turbo models, we come to the Turbo S model. Released in 1997, late in the model range period, they put on larger turbochargers and managed to squeeze just under 450 bhp out of it. The last of the air-cooled turbos, if that matters to anyone. Think 400,000 up for these, and I'll remind you that 996 turbos can be had for about 10% of that. Just saying, you know. Did I mention that I'm a 996 owner? Not sure. So that's the Carrera and turbo models. What else? Well, how about the GT? There really is only one GT model in this range, although initially it was called the GT, it was called the GT2 later in its life. The GT started as a race car developed for the road so that the racing versions could qualify to race. It was based on the turbo and had its engine tweaked to give out a little bit more power, and was stripped of the all-wheel drive system in order to save weight. Later models in 1997 pushed out 444 bhp. Only 57 cars were produced and are incredibly hard to find. One sold in 2016 for $2.4 million. Perhaps if you'd like something similar to the GT2 but for a little less money, maybe its baby brother might suit you, the Carrera RS. Really based on the Carrera rather than the GT2, it had the 3.8 litre engine, giving power of 296 bhp. Matched with trick suspension, a huge rear wing, and such weight-saving measures as removing the rear seats and deploying thinner glass, this car really began Porsche's GT philosophy. They're still upwards of $400,000 if you can find one, more if you want the RS Club Sport track-oriented version. They made just over 1,000 of all RS models. Very cool indeed, I must say. So that's the whole range of 993 done, except for the rarest one of them all, the 993 Speedster. One of one, or we could say two if we include the cabriolet that Jerry Seinfeld sent back to Porsche's exclusive department for conversion. The real one was produced as a special car for Ferry Porsche's 60th birthday. Don't you wish you had your own car company? Of course, I couldn't leave without showing you another one-of-one car, 2018's Project Gold. Porsche built a new 993 Turbo in 2018 from the 6,000 or so parts they had for maintaining customer cars, and used modern processes and manufacturing to do so. The pity of this car, I'm afraid, is it'll never be driven on the road. It was registered as a new car but doesn't adhere to modern safety standards and regulations. Regardless, a truly wonderful car, I'm sure you'll agree. So that's the walkthrough of the Porsche 993 range, which I hope was helpful. Porsche produced just over 68,000 of them worldwide, a fraction of the 175,000 996s that superseded it. They are rare, capable, reliable, and the last of the line. Makes for a desirable high-value car, very cherished by owners and enthusiasts alike. Stay tuned for more great films coming your direction soon. Meantime, take a look at my other Porsche films and walkthroughs. Some good stuff in there if you're looking for a Porsche. See you in the next one. Thanks for watching.